Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and I am the streamer on the stream, and we build Django apps. We're going to continue on that tonight. I'm going to be working on a new detailed page for the homeschool app that I'm building for my family. So that's what we're going to be getting into. Hopefully you'll stick around and check out how that goes. I do want to thank the patrons that I have on patreon.com. So if you want to support me, you can at patreon.com/mblehman. And I want to thank Rupert, Andrew, Patrick, Eric, Philip, and Miguel for their contributions. You helped me get out a bunch of Django content to the community and cover hosting costs and various things. So I really appreciate the support there. As always, you're welcome to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. But generally, the way this stream works is I'm just going through my project and getting stuff done and answering questions as they come in. So let's look at the next thing we have to do. So I've been building a homeschool application for my family. This product is called School Desk. It's available at the schooldesk.app. And one of the things that is needed that has been missing from the application is a certain detail page. We have a bunch of models in the application, and actually before I guess we launch up the server, we'll take a look at the models really quickly. And here's the trusty old models diagram that I've used on many occasions. This comes out of the Django extensions project. Let's resize this here so you can actually see some stuff. That would be good. Nope, wrong button. Blech. Come on, Mac. Zoom. There we go. Yeah, cool. And what we can see in this diagram is that there are a bunch of related models, and they have different detail pages and things. And what I'm missing is, in particular, this model right here. So we're going to focus our attention on the grade level model. The structure of a school in this homeschool application is a school has many school years, which has many grade levels, which can have many courses, and so on. And I've managed with the way that the UI has been presented so far to avoid having a detail page that shows grade level information, but there's enough there that I want to show. There's actually some UI elements that I want to expose that are going to be nice to have a page specifically for that. So we're going to use this page and populate it with the data that I care about, and then work from there. So it's probably going to be a bit of a refactor of an existing, there's an edit page already that has the proper form stuff. And so we're going to follow the same kind of patterns that I've been doing for other parts of the app. But there's some extra things that are going to go into this detail page that are not going to be part of the edit page. And so we'll have to account for those as well. Okay, so that's the plan. Again, if you have any questions, shoot them over into the chat and I'll be happy to try and answer them. So let's fire up the local web server and take a look at what we got and get logged in. Now, last time I streamed, and it's been a couple of weeks since I was sick last time, but I was starting with a new school year. So there's a lot less data to look at now because I haven't populated this one with more stuff, but it's enough to get by. And we can go to the school year page where we need to pay attention to. And what I was saying earlier is that I've been able to get by thus far because the grade level is really just a container for the courses. The course is the real unit of work that gets stuff done. So students are part of a school year, but really it's a collection of courses, and that's where most of the interesting stuff happens. And so if you want to dig into a course, you click on the page and you get all this stuff and you see it, and it's all good. But what's missing right now is this actually goes to a page which I wouldn't anticipate. So the pattern that I have for a lot of these things is the pencil icon is actually going to the edit page, whereas if you click the what's often next to it, the label, that will take you to the detail page. So if I click this, it'll actually take me to this particular page. If I click this Science 3 course, it'll take me to the details of that page. And if I click the edit icon, it'll take me to the edit page. The grade level breaks that paradigm though. There's an edit icon over here, which will take you to the ability to edit the grade level. But then there's also this thing, which will also take you to the edit page, which is kind of weird and really doesn't match with the other patterns. So what we're going to do is modify this particular grade level right here and set that as the detail page, change the template stuff appropriately, and then add some extra UI for things that we want. Tina in 2010, welcome. Thank you for joining in. So let's get into the code. So we have a grade level create page, which is that's all good, and we have an update page. Actually, I guess there's really not a shared template for this. I was mistaken. I apologize for that. So what on other views does pair together typically is the create view and the edit view. Those two things usually go together. But for the detail view, so if we're talking about CRUD, CRUD is the common pattern that is used in tons of web applications. That's create, read, update, and delete. And this application is no different from that. So it has the create and the update patterns. It doesn't actually have the ability to delete a grade level right now. Somebody might request that in the future, but it's not there today. But it's missing the delete view. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and add the page, and actually we're going to need to modify some paths, because this page right now, you can see it has grade levels and it takes a PK, but it doesn't. This page is supposed to be for just the canonical detail page. Instead, it is not. It's for something else. Shivens93, welcome as well. Thanks for joining in. So I think the first step here probably is to create a new path, new URL. We're going to write the test case to do this, so we can do some test-driven development, and we'll get going. So let's go to the place where this is going to be. This is in the schools app, so we're going to go to the schools test views file, and let's take a look at how some of these other ones have done it. I think I'm generally putting the detail view first, and then create. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much, but it's helps a little bit. So let's take this and let's copy the create view. Well, actually, before we blindly do that, let's see if it makes sense to copy. So this test case has 4 tests in it. I think 3 of them make sense. The 4th one one of them does not. So we'll take this as a starting baseline for what we want to show, and we will put that right here. And you might not have seen anything because that's just the way Vim goes about things, but we'll change this to be the detail view. So far so good. I could run this test case, and with any luck it should just pass, because it's pointing at 4 different tests. So Shivans, the question you have about where to put tests, and you note the tests.py. So that's an interesting observation. Yeah, when you do the what is it? Start app? Not the name of the command. Is that right? One of the built-in management commands that comes with Django is, I believe, the start app command. And let me just want to make sure I'm being honest here. Yeah, start app. So start app does a scaffold for you, and it puts a tests module. And actually, I on my website, I've got an article series that you might be interested in, and where is it? It's called the Understand Django series, and I talk about application structure. In which article? There it is. And in this discussion, I highlight that, look, here's what comes out of the start app stuff, and there's this test.py file, and I note here that I always delete this file. I never ever keep it, because I think it's too broad in what it does. You can keep it, of course. You can run tests from there, but if we take a look at what I actually have in my app, and go up a couple directories, you can see here. So here's the structure of my schools app, and there's actually more stuff. It's starting to grow, so you might not see it. It might not be as clear as the start app stuff, but here's the admin file, the apps file, and then there's the forms and models and views. And note that I don't have a test.py file in here. Instead, what I did is I deleted that file and I replaced it with a tests package. And by having the test package, that unlocks the ability to create test files and test modules that are scoped specifically to the things that I want to test. And so that gives me the right buckets for things. So if I'm testing views, I go to the test views file. If I'm testing models, I go to the test models file, and so forth. I feel like that gives a much better structure. It's a much clearer pattern of, if you are a consumer of the test application and you're just looking at something, you know exactly, or assuming that the author matched up names appropriately, you should have a good idea of the kind of tests that are in that module, what they're testing. So hopefully that answers your question. As for the second part about the question is if I'm running PyTest on the terminal, yes and no. So I actually spend a lot of my time executing tests directly from my editor, and this was like a superpower. So I had a coworker at my last job, and my way of, I'm using Vim here, but this probably applies to whatever editor you're using. But my coworker pointed out to me that if I can get my tests executing right from my editor, that it can dramatically improve the feedback loop, especially if you have really fast tests. So my old pattern was I would go and I'd say, okay, I'm here at the terminal and I'm going to type PyTest, and I'm going to go to home schools, and I'd navigate and run the test views, or go to the test directory and do test views, and this works. Like there's nothing wrong with this. This is a good way to run a subset, but you can see I just ran 73 tests, and that doesn't even get to the right thing. So if I wanted to actually test against a specific test case, well, then I have to do the test. I don't even know the name anymore. So test grade level detail view. So test grade level detail view, and you can see like this gets me closer, and gets to the 4 tests, but I'd still have to go one more and to go to like test get if I wanted to if I really wanted to get to one test. And what my coworker pointed out to me is like, that's really dumb. I mean, I'm not trying to insult anybody if that's what you do. I'm trying to level up your skills here, or a way that you could potentially level up your skills. What he told me was like, hey, find a tool that lets you run a test like right from there. So as you're writing your code, you can constantly be running your tests. And you want to take it even a step further if you can, to learn the keyboard shortcuts for whatever editor you have to run those tests quickly. So to answer your question, the way that I run tests here is so I'm in Vim, as I said. I'm using a plugin called Vim Test. And with Vim Test, what I'm able to do is use a keyboard shortcut that I have. I've mapped a command to it, and with a couple of keystrokes, so those 2 keystrokes for me was the spacebar and the T key, is able to automatically determine what test method that I'm in, and Vim Test builds that up and executes it with PyTest. And so it takes over my editor for a second. I see the results. Some people prefer to have like the code and the test results side by side. That's not like what I want to do. I want to be able to focus on the test. That's just my style. But it leaves me in the editor. So what you see here is it appears that I've gone somewhere else. But if you note, like if you can see it up in the corner here, it's still telling me that I'm in Vim. I haven't left Vim. So I can hit enter and I can return to my test and keep kind of iterating that way. So this is how I like to test. I find that it is a very fast feedback loop. And I found it very powerful. So I feel like once my coworker introduced me to that concept, I really moved up to the next level. So again, I don't know what editor you all use, but I would highly recommend taking a bit of time to explore it, see what kind of testing tools are available, see if there are ways that you can learn those shortcuts, because you will go amazingly fast. Oh, you use Vim? Okay. Yeah, check it. It's Vim Test. That's the package, and I think I wrote up an article about it at some point, but here's the link to the Vim Test project. So if you want to add that as one of your plugins, I definitely recommend it. It's pretty great. Okay, so let's get back to what we're trying to do here. We've got this new oh, you're welcome. We've got this new test case, and what we want is what do we want? I'm realizing now that I might have pulled from the wrong test case, because these tests are already like baked in for just assuming that it's for a particular school year. That's not really what I wanted. I think I really wanted the update view because it has a grade level already. So let's steal this one instead. Yeah. Let's go back to the detail test case, drop that, delete that test case name, and then we're going to delete a bunch of extra tests. Apologize for this is a little messy. This process of, because there's patterns of like tests that I just want to run all the time, and a lot of times it's just easier. Sometimes it's okay to do some copying. Like some people will say that you want your code to be super dry. Ironically, dry is one of these things I always feel that people have to spell out, and I'm going to do it too. So it's don't repeat yourself, even though I'm repeating myself. Anyway, setting that irony aside, so test code is one of these spots where it's okay to have some duplication, in my opinion. Others will disagree with me, but I think it's a valid thing to have. So we have now these three tests. And what are these three tests getting at? One of them is checking on access control. I want every one of my views to be at the proper access level. You have to be logged in to do this. Another one is checking the happy path. That's the GET request itself, and is checking some of the context data that I use as the contract that goes with the template. And then this other one is ensuring that it's another access control test, making sure that some other user can't look at the grade level for this particular user. So that's important to get in there too. So those are the three tests that we're going to start with. And we're going to go to the other files and just modify these and do some failure-driven development, I sometimes call it, where like I have a very known, well-established pattern of a view that I'm trying to create, and I'm going to use let the failures guide me. So let's return to the schools URLs file, which is right here, and make sure that I'm matching up with the names that the conventional names that I'm picking for other stuff. So we've got school year detail. So we're going to call these, instead of edit, we're going to change them to detail. And start with there. A user can only view their own grades. So that's the documentation we're sharing. Now, we're at a position where we can try this out. And it's going to fail. And it's going to say, I don't know what that is. That URL doesn't exist. So there's the failure-driven part of this. And so we can come down back to the URLs file. And here's where we're going to go to the grade level. And actually, before I paste it, let's make sure I match up with the ordering. So I think I've been ordering these in the CRUD style. So you have create, read, update, and there's no delete for the school year, but I do try and follow CRUD in just how they're listed in here. So we're going to do the same thing over here. So we've got a create view and we've got an update view, and the update view is using the PK. So we'll start with that. So this is going to be our grade level detail view. So we'll switch it to detail, and we're going to change the name to detail. And here, this is where it's going to be important to actually also update the URL of the edit view, because as I said, the URL of the edit view is using the wrong convention. It was just saying like I'm claiming the detail view path, which was actually a mistake on my part. So we can go to the update view and we're going to tack on edit at the end. And so if we try and run this now, it's still going to fail. It'll fail for a different reason. And the reason is the view doesn't exist. And my editor was trying to tell me that, but I wasn't paying much attention to it as I was talking to you all. So the next thing to do, I think we're done with this file, in fact. So we're going to go to the views file, and we want a detail view. So I'm going to start with the school year detail view and just copy it because why not? Again, these are well-established patterns. So we'll go to down where the grade level stuff is. Here is create, and we'll put it right after that. And we'll change it. Instead of a school year detail view, it's going to be a grade level detail view. The benefit of copying into this scenario is that, aside from the fact that, it just sets up the right patterns of like, here are all the details that are required minimally to make a detail view. And we have to adjust the query sets. None of this is right so far, but I don't have to replicate that. So doing just this much actually should make this test pass. Because what this test is doing is not going into any of the guts of the view. It's testing that the login required mixin is present on the view. Because again, it was an access control test. So one test down. The next test we're going to do is check that the detail view can do a 200, do a get call, and this get check 200 is a helper method from Django Test Plus. And it will not only do the get call itself, but it actually will check the status code and make sure it's a 200. That part should pass. I have a feeling that the assert is going to fail. Although, yeah, well, let's just run it and see what happens. Okay, that failed for reasons. Oh, okay. So the query set's wrong. So the query set is supposed to be about grade levels. So we passed in a PK, a primary key, and gave it the grade level ID. And this is one of the quirks of, is it a quirk? Yeah, it's a quirk. So Django has both ID and PK. Models, by default, Django models, will be given an ID. And it's usually, what is the field name? I just encountered this the other day. It's an int auto field or auto int field, something like this. Somebody can check that and keep me honest. It's something, or an int auto field, but the idea is it's an auto incrementing field that is automatically included. Let's see, not sure which one. And it gives every row in your database table a unique identifier, because a database constraint has to have some way to uniquely reference stuff. But it doesn't have to be the primary key of your model. Django has the ability to do other things that could be the primary key. So when you use the PK attribute, Django can resolve that to a different primary key. In the vast majority of circumstances, PK and ID are the same. And so that's what I'm doing here. But I have to do it as PK because the class-based views, DetailView, expects to use the PK name and not ID. Ideally, in my opinion, I would have done something like ID is equal to ID. I think that's a lot more clear, but Django doesn't really go for that. Okay, so we're at the grade level view. We want, what do we want? We want the grade level model. And we're not going to prefetch anything yet or do any select related. So let's delete that stuff. That's for performance stuff. We'll check on that, but not yet. The other thing that we need to do is that we need to make sure, getting down to that access control test from earlier, that we're only looking at the grade levels that the user has access to. So jumping back to the models diagram, ultimately where this goes to is that here's the user. So this is the person that logs into the site, and they have a school. Every user's automatically created a school when they sign up. There's a foreign key to the school. So the chain is the user has a school, the school has school years, the grade level, the school year has grade levels. So if we want to make sure that we filter to only the grade levels that a user has, we can put in school year, school, admin. Those are the names of the attributes on each of the associated models. And Django will do the appropriate join to make sure that we filter to the proper stuff. So that's going to be that access control idea. There's all this junk in here that I think is just going to be wrong because it's all related to school years. So let's comment it out for a minute. I want to see if we can get to success here. And I'm going to comment out the assert. So I really just want to get down to a check of, is this thing going to pass with the 200 status code? And it doesn't. It doesn't because we don't have a template, which should be obvious in hindsight, but I wasn't really thinking about that. So now we're going to go and we're going to give it a template. And let's do that right now. And the template doesn't need to be right away. So we can go to the templates section, and this is in the schools app. So I have a templates directory with schools, and we're going to look at the school, oh my goodness, school year detail page. Okay, so is this going to be a good one to copy from? The school year is like probably the one detail page in the whole system that I don't want to use. So if we bring the app back up and we look at this, the school year page has a lot going on. There's way more stuff than the average page. Like this is probably the most complex page in the application. So I don't want to pick from this one. Really, I probably want to pick from like a course template, which is going to be a lot simpler and a lot closer to what we want. What else is in here that we might be able to use? We can probably use, is there another detail page in here? Nope, well, that's the only one. Super. So let's bring up the templates, courses, and the course detail page instead. And I'm just going to take all of this, I'm going to return back to the schools area. We're going to create the grade level detail page and drop that into the template. All right. I'm looking at the chat. It's bothering me that I can't remember the name of that field. Django auto int. That's not the name. Is it just auto field? That's auto field. Okay. There's a new one as well. I don't know why I didn't click the real documentation. So there's auto field, which was like the classic one. And you can see there's this note about Django 3.2 stopped using auto field as the default. And now we'll use something called big auto field. And the reason for that is I think it's an interesting choice. It changes the field type. So autofield has a limit. And I think the limit depends on your database. The big auto field has a way bigger limit. So you can see that the number of rows you could have in your database table is absurdly huge. So it makes it so you don't even have to ever think about what happens if I run out of row numbers to assign to a database table. So it's a good field to have. And I guess I'll comment, let's put this in the notes or in the chat over here, are the real things that we want to highlight in case people see this later. Okay, sorry. I couldn't leave that alone because it was bugging me. So we now have this grade level detail. What's going to happen, I predict, is we're going to run the test. So now we're not going to get a template error, or we're not going to get a template does not exist error, but we'll probably have some of these things won't be able to resolve. Like here's one right here. I can almost guarantee you immediately that this is not going to resolve. So this wants to link to the school year page. The school year detail page is a link, but we didn't provide that in the context. So it's going to get none for that, and it's going to blow up in our face. So there's a bunch of these that I predict it's gonna find in here. And this one just happened to hit the course edit pattern first. So we need to fill this out basically. And yeah, so that's kind of the next place we want to go. Is we want to, there's some of the stuff that I want to keep and some of the stuff that's not going to matter. Just trying to look at this for a minute and see, because the other thing that's going to happen is that if there's these if blocks, since they're not in the context, these pieces will just basically, they're going to evaluate to false and just be skipped. So there are things that we can leave for now that aren't going to hurt anything. We really just need to populate this with the bare minimum in order to get this going. So let's go back to the views file for a minute. And we'll spend our time just over there. And I think, what do we want? We want to say that we want to select the related school year. That's something that we want to do because we're going to be accessing the school year and I don't want to have to do a second query. So when you do select related for foreign keys, what that does is it's telling the ORM that, hey, I'm actually going to use this, and so I want you to fetch it at the same time that you fetch the primary model, in this case the grade level. If you don't do this, then when you do grade level.school year, if you haven't done select related, it'll say, okay, I don't have the school year data, I need to go do another query. So it's a way to save a query. So we're going to put that select related there because what I'm going to do is take this context, I'm going to immediately add the school year to the context and go from the object. So in the views calling at the time that the view is called, because this is about grade levels, the object from the detail view will be populated with the grade level itself. That's the generic name that is applied to the view. I think it might also do grade level as a name, but I'm going to leave that as is. So we're just going to refer to the grade level as object, and I know that the grade level has a school year attribute. So we can do that. Now, that should get us past one failure, but I don't think it'll get us past some of the others. So let's return to this detail page, and actually let's just run the test and see if it worked. I doubt it, because I think it was related to a course. Yeah. So in the template, it's trying to do a reverse on the course edit. Yeah, here it is. Courses, the edit view. And that is coming from courses edit right here. So it's trying to resolve this because it's got the edit icon. So really what we want is we want to switch this to the equivalent link for grade level, which I don't remember what it's called anymore. So let's bring up that URLs file and take a look. So it's the grade level edit page. Yeah, so we want, this is in the schools app. So we say schools, and then we say grade level edit. And then we'll change this to grade level. I think that'll be the right one to get that going. And edit. We don't want to say course, we want to say grade level. So that's the tooltip on the SVG icon. Let's try it again, see what happens. Whoops, not school, we want plural. Try it again. Okay, now what? So now it's saying the task create page, or there's a task create somewhere in here, which we don't have. So it's trying to do that. It shouldn't be this one because there's no course tasks, so that's going to fail. So where are you coming from? That's the only one that shows up here. So there's a There's another template that we need to reference. What's the other template called? Course tasks? Maybe it's coming from there. The other thing that I could do is just kind of hack and slash this down until it's the right thing. That might actually be faster. But let's try task create in here. I don't know why that wouldn't do it either, because this also doesn't have any detail. All right, so let's pare it down until we can find the area that we need. We don't need this. So those are that's some UI that we're not going to need. We don't need to display any resources. That's not something that's part of this, so we can take out this chunk of template block. It's probably, the funny part is, when I get to the bottom of this, it might turn out that we actually didn't need most of this. And I don't have any task details, so that's not going to be a thing. Here's the UI that was on the top of that page, so that's not a thing. Ah, here it was, task create. Well, but this is in the if course, whatever. Okay. For the moment, let's comment out some stuff. I don't want to delete it all because there are some bits in here that would be useful to have. So it's going to pass. Please pass. There we go. Okay. Let's go see the carnage. But we'll need a place to get to that. So let's go to the, is it grade level detail? Nope, that's the page we just started. All right. Sorry, y'all. I'll get there, I promise. So we render in these sections the grade level stuff. So there's some buttons. Maybe I didn't actually take it out of here. All right, here it is. So this is where we had the name. And now I want to switch it to the detail page. That's going to restore the pattern that I want for the application that will match up with everything else. All right, so everything should be good to go. Let's refresh this page. And now if I hover over this, notice on the edit icon, I can click that and it's going to take me to this page. If I return and click on here, I get a different page. It looks silly because it's from that other template, but it has some of the right URLs already. So we need to go in here and populate this with the real thing. And then clean out this other stuff. And then fill it with the real stuff. Apologies, I'm still recovering from a bit of a cold, so. Okay. So we can go to the grade level detail page. And we've got the school year and the context. That's already appearing here. That's a good sign. In fact, while we're at it, let's kill the server and we'll put it in the debug toolbar mode that I've added to my site. And it's going to give us the debug toolbar over on the side. And we want to do that so that we can click into templates and check out the context periodically. This is super useful. And you can see here that grade level and object are both referring to the grade level. Those are automatically inserted by the detail view. And we can reference those throughout the template already. And school year was the bit that I already added. And here's all the other stuff that's automatically added by various middleware and things. So let's start with the top. This is the bit that you can't see, but I'm still going to do it. We're going to change this to grade level, and this is the name that will show up in the tab. So I'm going to re-render this page, and you can't see it, but I can. It says third grade dash school desk now, which is what I would expect. So that's that first step. This part is correct, and I'm probably gonna, there's some. This is pretty dense. And I've been discovering that as I've been editing more of my own template stuff, coming back to it later, the density makes it difficult to like quickly see what's in there. So here we are with this, like, this is the area, this is the breadcrumb area at the top, and we don't need all of this stuff. I don't need to do this in a for loop. I just need this to be referencing the grade level itself. So we're going to take out some of this stuff. So we know that there is a grade level object, so we don't need to wrap this. And I also don't need this to be in a for loop. In fact, because of where we are, let me see. Let's check out some other patterns. Let's check out a course. On the course detail page itself, you can click things that are above, but it doesn't make sense for the actual course name to also be clickable, because it would just bring you right back to the same page. So the same holds true of what we need for this next section. We don't need a link on this stuff. We just need the actual grade name. So I think what we can do, and as I'm looking at it, we can probably get away with grade level name. I think we can delete all that stuff. The link's not necessary. It doesn't need to loop over grade levels. The other thing that I know for certain is going to be true is that there's definitely going to be a school year, because that's not the foreign key constraint on a grade level mandates a school year, so there's no point in hiding that. So that brings those up. And then we don't need the SVG icon after the grade level name. That's not helpful. What we do need is the edit button. So we'll have, these will be our bits here. It's a header tag with the school year, the SVG that is between the grade level name and then the edit icon. But that's the wrong page. Let's go back to this page. So now we've got third grade. It's not clickable. We can go back to the school year. That's good. And we've got the edit grade level button, which will take us to the place where we can edit this. It feels good. Curious. So here's a cancel button. And that cancel button is not going back to where we just were. So I think that this page can understand the next parameter. What we're going to do is we'll say after the URL, we'll say next equals, and then we'll use the request. Oh, is it request path? That right? Yep, with a URL encode. Okay. So if we return to where we were and refresh and now hit the edit icon, if you look in the bottom, you can see that now it has a keyword argument, a query string argument of the next parameter that points us back to this detail page. And with any luck, I designed this right. Ah, dang it. I didn't. Okay. Well, let's go fix that up. So in a lot of the places that I have update views, if the next parameter exists, the link here changes to point back to that page. I didn't do that apparently on this edit page, so we're going to go do that. And I can probably steal that from this is probably some of the bit from like a course edit page. Course form. Yeah. And this one doesn't have it. Okay. It's something like request get next is the thing I want to look for. Here it is. I apologize. It's starting to get like a little crazy. All this stuff. And we don't want to look at the detail page. We want to look at the grade level form page and find the cancel button and paste in this stuff. And so now this says, like, if request get next exists, then use that. Otherwise, use something else. And the thing that we want to be the else is the default case here. So we can delete these couple lines, bring these lines up, and I think that'll do it. So let's return back to the previous page. We'll refresh, and that part didn't matter probably. So we're going to go back to the next page now. Now the cancel button says take you back to the detail page. So that's working properly now. Cool. It was a little tangent, but a worthwhile one. This is why so sometimes my flow for these is like, I'm not planning to write big complicated UI tests that are going to check all these paths. Like somebody might decide that that's for them, but my principal mode of going is like, as I'm building out the page, can I be testing these things along the way to make sure that they're working as I would expect them to? And they are. Or when they're not, we make little tweaks and fix them. All right, what do we need next? Well, let's look at what's on the edit page. So the only bits that are in the grade level model, there's very little. There's the name. So that's the bit that you want to change. There's the connection to the school year, which you're not allowed to change. That's always associated with a particular school year. And then there's the ID. So that's it. So why am I even creating this page? There's two reasons. One reason is I want to take this UI that exists on the edit page, and I want to also carry it over to the detail page. And this chunk of UI, what it exists for, is one of the features that was requested by my spouse and users of the platform is on the weekly view, there's this ordering here. You can see math both, science, and new course. So she wanted the ability to control that ordering. So if maybe she like created a course first and didn't like it, she wasn't happy with that, and so I needed to come in there and do some stuff to change that. So if we hit the down button on this update page refreshes, we now see that this order is different. So we can go back to the week view and hit the refresh button, and Science 3 moves to the top. So that's convenient on the edit page, but I also want it to be on the detail page. And the reason for that is like there's other information that I want to put on the detail page, and I want the detail page to be able to communicate, here's all the important stuff to the grade level, and the ordering of the courses within the grade level is part of that. So that is what we will do here. So in order to do that though, we need to populate this part of the context. I want to reuse the same template. So if it's not extracted into its own piece, then I need to pull that out into a separate template fragment so that I can use it in multiple places. And then beyond that, there's the final piece, the real reason I wanted to create this detail page in the first place is I want to be able to show what students are enrolled in that grade level. In the average family, a student will be enrolled in a single grade level. There are 2 kids in my house. One's a 3rd grader, one's a 1st grader. So, it makes sense to just have a single enrollment there. So I want to be able to show who's enrolled, but the way that I've modeled the system, it's possible for a family to have multiple children enrolled in the same grade level. So let's say you have twins and they're both in 2nd grade. You want to put them in the same course or the same grade level with all the same courses, then that's what you would do. And that's part of a critical element. But the way the app is implemented right now is that it's actually not easy to add multiple enrollments for a single grade level, even though the capability is there. So that's what I want to surface with this detail page of providing the UI of like, oh, you want to add another student to your grade level? Here, go ahead. All right, so let's return to the previous page. Whoops. Here we are. And let's go back to the template stuff. I don't think there's any kind of messaging that I need to have here, so we can get rid of this block. We can also get rid of this. Yeah, the more I'm looking at this, the more it's like I really did not need to copy this template. All I really cared about was the breadcrumbs. Oh well, sometimes that happens. So we're now down to this as the template. Very comprehensible, I hope you'll agree. Not a lot to it. So we want to get the table of courses with the controls. Let's see what that looked like. It was on the grade level form. And here it is. It's in this if not create. So we need to pull this block out right there. Yep, that's what we need to pull out. So let's say, what do we need to do? What are we going to call this, I guess? Maybe grade level courses? That's probably fitting. Let's use the same convention of not using underscores, since that's the way these ones are done with detail views. And so grade and level are smashed together, even though they would naturally be separated by an underscore. And we'll say grade level courses. We'll bring up that other form template, and I'm going to take everything that's in here and we're also going to need to make sure we pay attention to, is there any other data in here? I think not. I think it's just the grade level and the course ID, which is good. And we'll delete that. And then we get the benefit of, we can unindent that stuff, which is nice. All right, so now we've got this grade level courses template fragment that we can do with an include tag. So we can say include schools grade level courses, HTML. And let's check on it. Before we add it to the detail page, let's check that it still works on the edit page. So here it is. It's still rendering. Let's move that math course back up. Still working. Okay. And we're going to then take this same thing and we'll plop it in the detail one. come down to the bottom. And we'll see what happens. Let's go back to, That's taking me back to school here. I must have gotten this from a different way. Okay. So here we are. Here's the courses. Now the thing that I want to check and make sure it still works is this going to, on the refresh, is this going to refresh me back to the edit page, or is it going to refresh me to this particular page? Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. So hitting the down button there is actually sending me to the wrong location. It's because it made the assumption that this table only appeared on that edit page. And so once it does the redirect, so you get the view back, it's going to the wrong place. So that means we need to correct the move course up and move course down buttons. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to add next parameters to them, which won't be that hard to do, but we will then have to pass the next parameter down into the template. Is that true? Yeah, I think that's true. Okay, so no, that's actually not true. We'll have access to we should have access to the request in here, so we should be able to do this. So we're gonna come to the button. So there's a form submit, and this is the actual view that's doing the work. So there's a schools course up view that takes the grade level and the course, and then decides which way you're going to go. So what I want to add to this is a next parameter so that it knows where to go next. I use that trick a lot. I probably abuse next, but it's useful. So we'll say request path URL encode. So in other words, what I'm saying is like, come back to the same page when you're done, because this is a post. And so we want to put that on both the up and down directions. We've got that there. And now we can go to these views, which are in the schools area. So the schools views. And I'm going to hack it in at first. Probably need to write a test later. Oh my. Do we need any of this stuff? I don't think so. And the other thing I want to decide is, does it need to... Sorry, I'm just thinking for a second. There's a way to like show which nav. So this is the nav of these buttons, and with a bit of context you can highlight which one you want to be there, but I don't think I actually want to highlight any of them in this area. I might regret that later, but it would be easy to correct if I needed to. So let's just get rid of all this. All right, and then we want to look for the course up. So we've got move course up and move course down, and I put them in the same move course method. And here's where you can see where I made my assumption. So it's going back to the same grade level, and that's okay as a default, but I want to be able to do a better job than that. So I want move course to take another argument of the next URL. And now it's pointing out that these are now broken because they're missing arguments, which is correct. And the other thing I want to do is, there's going to need to be a guard here. So if the next URL is none, then we want to extract this here and say that next URL is going to be equal to this. So that's the safe default if I ever mess that up at some point in the future. And what we want to pass in to this argument is request.get and then get next. Hopefully that was clear. If it wasn't, sorry. So now what's happening is it's going to try and pull out of the query string if there is a next parameter, and then use that as the redirect location. And since the template is populating that with the URL, that should all work appropriately. Now it's not tested, and this line of code, well, that line of code might be executing by the test, but we need a test for this, which I can do later. So if we return back to, man, how do I keep getting, oh, it's because the logic was wrong. We're going to go back to this page, and I'm going to refresh this. And just to confirm, let's inspect the element, make sure it's doing what I expect. So we've got the icon, and it's wrapped in a form, which is doing a post that's doing this course up action with a next parameter that brings it back to this page, in theory. So if I did it all right, it should work. Let's try moving math both up. I moved it up, great, and it brought it back to this page. It didn't take us to the update page. Let's also try the down path. That worked as well. And just to confirm one other place, this should work over here too. So let's move it down even one more. Okay, that worked, great. And then if we go over, I don't know why this would matter, but just to see it. So it's there too. So we've got our table. And what else do we have? I think before I move on, I want to not forget that because I'm going to forget it later if I don't do it. I want to test this. Now, there's a chance that the coverage tools are already testing that line, that new line of code. So if next URL is none, is actually going to probably be true of all of those tests because it was never checking for a next URL. So it's not looking for that. So what's actually, even though it's going to get likely to get 100% test coverage on this, it's really missing a condition. It's missing the check basically that is implied of what happens when there is a next URL. Will that actually go to the right spot? Now, we observed that as I was poking at it in the browser, but I still want to make sure that that behavior is accurate in the future. So once this runs, hopefully everything will pass because I don't think that we've broken anything. I don't know why we would have broken something. And it will probably also report 100% coverage. Yeah, but we're still missing a test. So I want to add it to a test to both the up and down views so that it will preserve that behavior in the future because the template's depending on it now in order to make the application correct. So if we go back to the test views file, which we haven't been on for a while, and go to, what is this, course up probably? Course, oh, I'm in the wrong app. No, that's why. Schools, test views. Course up. Course up. There it is. Oh, that's the wrong. That test case is named incorrectly. It's not a course task moving up. It's a course moving up. So those are wrong. All right. We want to check. So we want one test to check. Did it go to the next URL? When next is present in the query string. The view redirects. I don't like that. We can write this easier. Try again. The view redirects to the next URL when present. There we go. And so we want to so here this one has the, I'm pointing like you can see my finger on my word, sorry, it's getting late. This example has the location check already right here. So lines 416 through 418 is the appropriate check. But that's not what we want. So we want to deliberately go somewhere else so it proves that it will go to the other path. But I want all the same stuff that's here. But now we're going to put next URL. And we can do some reverse to somewhere that won't really matter, like core index or something like that. That core index is probably one of the, it's the only one in the whole application that's a bad example because it's just slash. So we want to go somewhere else. So let's do a reverse on the terms page. So the terms and conditions of the site. So we've got this. And oh, that's really curious. Why did it do that? How is this one passing? Oh, I see. Okay. We don't need that. But we do need to go in here and do, in fact, I don't, let's just do URL. So let's do format string. Ah, come on. So we've got a URL. Let's rename this to URL. And it's going to be an F string that is not going to be an F string. It'll be a format string that will look like the URL followed by a question mark with next followed by the other URL. And we'll wrap it like that. So that's not used yet. It's okay. So what we need is the to use self-reverse. And we'll delete from here. So it's a pretty gnarly looking format string, unfortunately. Whoops, redo. And we'll change it to put URL. I don't really like that. It's really confusing looking. So I'm rethinking this. Let's do this. We'll say the URL is this reverse. And then we can do a plus equal on the URL. And we're going to take that off. Does that look better? Yeah, that's good enough. And then we want to check. I guess I actually want to do next URL because we want to check that in the bottom. Let's put that there. And instead of using a format string, we can switch to an F string now that we have something nicer. Delete that, and then say next URL. And then at the bottom, we can do next URL as the location where we expect it to go. All right, importantly, the test passed, in spite of it maybe not looking as pretty as I would like it to. But that's the important part. So we've got the course down view version of this done. And I'm going to replicate this thing because that's the same structure that we want for the course up. So the difference, though, if we're paying close attention, is that we actually want to refer to the second course in the URL. This time around, we don't want the first course because we're trying to say like go up or go down. No, go up. So we're going to change that, and we're going to change from first course to second. And that should also work. Cool. All right, let's see what we've got. I think I'm hitting a wall mentally. So we've added a new test case. We've done the access control, like the generic login access control, the happy path test. Oops, I see that test grade level detail. We need to fix this. We haven't actually done this. Okay, we need to assert that the school year is in the context because that's important. It's part of the template, what the template expects. So I want to put that in there. And we didn't have to put any other stuff in there. The grade level was already present, so that wasn't necessary to add or check because that's coming from the detail view itself. I don't need to test Django. That doesn't add value. And then we've done this check to make sure that another user cannot access somebody else's grade level. So that's good. So I feel like that test case is done. We fixed the test case name here and added this new test to check that it's going to the next URL properly. We did the same thing on the other direction. We've got our new URL route here. We've renamed the edit route to match with the conventions, which I should have done in the beginning, but I didn't. And then we've got our new view, which isn't doing a whole lot. It's doing a query set. This is doing the access control with this line, making sure it's filtering to the right user and making sure it's also getting the school year. Now that I'm thinking about it, let's do a quick check on the number of queries. It's probably going to be a tiny fraction. Well, how do I keep ending up on these update pages? I'm not intending to be there. And we can look at the queries. There's only 4 queries. One's from the session. One's from the users table, accounts tables, the grade level, and then the method that we used to actually get that list of stuff where there's one query in there that does a query on the through model, which I'm not going to get into. There's a many-to-many field in play there. So this is a super efficient view right now. It's going to get a little bit, there might be like one more query when it's done, because the other piece that I want to add is the enrollment information that's not here yet, but that's coming. Let's look at the issue and let's see if I'm forgetting anything that I wanted to put in there. So we've got the courses. We've got the edit button. Aha. So we are linking from the school year detail page subsection header. That was the first link I added. We can go back to the school year and you can see I'm talking about this link. So that's right. But what the other thing that I remembered to do when I wrote up the issue here was another link from the course detail page. The course detail page has some of its own breadcrumbs, and let's show you one of those examples. So here's one, and we want to change this. Well, do I want to change that? That's a good question. So the nice part about this is it is already linking somewhere, and it's linking to what is arguably like a nicer page in most contexts. Of when you click on this, it takes you to the school year page where you see a summary, which is probably what you want. Memories Dota, welcome. I'm finishing up here for the night, but you're welcome to hang out. You can. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to like work on a project, but I'm happy to try and answer a question or two if you've got them. So fire away. Right now, at the moment, I'm just kind of reviewing the last bits of this change that we're working on. So it's working on a detail page. So let's add all this stuff. So we've got this test case that I'm happy with. We've got this other test and another test that's all good. Got a URL. We've got the view. Okay, so far so good. We've modified the up and down controls to accept a next parameter. You're not sure why your Python program isn't working. Are you doing web stuff, or are you doing something totally different? Because there's probably some limits about how far I'd be able to help you, but I can take a crack at it. But I can't just be pure tech support if you're just working on random stuff. And here's the template. So I extracted this chunk of grade level courses into a fragment here that was used both on the edit page and the detail page. And the modification that we had to make while doing that was add next parameter. My friend, the next parameter that gets added all over the place. Next parameter is kind of like having a back button in your app, if you like. So here's the detail page with the same fragment, and then the breadcrumb stuff, header stuff at the top. And there's the tab title. Yeah, you're gonna have to get specific for me here, Memory Soda. I can't help you just from generic statements. So you've got a class, Python class. Okay, that seems reasonable. You've got an init method, and you're saying your init method is raising exceptions. What kind of exceptions are you seeing? All right, I'm happy with all these changes. Well, good question. Can you link to a pastebin? Can I trust you not to be like linking to nasty stuff? I guess pastebin doesn't, you can't put crap on there. So yeah, I could probably take a look at a pastebin. All right, so where are we with the rest of this? So we've got, I'm going to say this part's done. Yeah, that's fair. I get you. So I will do my best, and if I can't, I can't spend a ton of time on it, but if I can, I might be able to steer you in the right direction. If it's a softball kind of thing, might be a softball for me, but I understand that learning programming can be challenging sometimes. So what seems like some impossible kind of tasks for somebody who's just beginning, when you're 15 years into it, like I am with Python, then some of those things become not so hard anymore. So the thing that we're not going to finish this off with tonight is the actual enrollment stuff. So that's going to be a chunk where it's showing who's enrolled in the grade level at that time, and it will list them out and maybe link to them, or when there is no student enrolled, it will have some kind of call to action button that will tell them, hey, you need to go enroll your student, and give them the controls to do that. And if there are more students that are available for that school year, it will continue to show that button. Because I don't want to be in a circumstance where, say you have a family with only 2 students and they're both enrolled in a grade level, then it doesn't make sense for them to see the enrollment button too. Oh, there's your pastebin link. Sorry, kind of just rambling here. You got some stuff. All right. So, question for you. Aha. All right. Yep. Okay. Cool. We can get just squared away here, I think. So as Eric Daniel noted here, the indentation is the real problem. And maybe you should let us know if that's not what if you're pasting something and pastebin's messing that up, because this needs to be, all of this stuff needs to be indented by a level here. So what's happened, if this is in fact your code, is that you have essentially defined a function here. It's not actually connected with the class because the indentation is off. And the function just happens to have 2 arguments. One's named self and one's named header. So if you indent this by 1 level, you have to actually not just indent the init, you'd have to indent all of this stuff by 1 level. And then what that will do is then Python will notice that the indentation is meant to go with the class. So maybe I can find an example for you in my own code here. Let's take a look. So we're going to look for an init method. I've got a bunch of them. And yeah, so here's an example of a class. So you're declaring a class, and you want to add an init method to that particular class. So in order to keep the scope together, basically keep the bundle of methods with the class, and ignore the fact that this is a dunder call. It's probably a bad example. But just focusing on these 4 lines, you can see that this is scoped this way. So what you had effectively, when you had it like this, is you have created a class with no methods on it. It's an empty class, and it worked because you had a doc string. Looking at your pastebin, you didn't have a doc string, but you had these class attributes on there. And so those, if you did inspect on that dataset class, would in fact you'd be able to find them. And what was really happening under the covers is that, well, I guess it wasn't using an init, and it's just a hook. So you could still create a data set, but it wasn't going to be using your same header thing that you've got here. So the way you would have invoked that is with data set equal data set. That would have worked with an empty constructor. So and then this thing right here, this init thing would just be a function that's declared on the module. So this whole file is considered a module, and you would be, because it's outdented, it's not part of the class, it's separate from the class, and so it's a function that is attached to the module level scope, in the same way that right here, strip clean is a function that is at the module level scope. So with that indentation, hopefully that sets you on the right path. Yeah, if you have any, I wish you luck. It sounds like you're getting into Python. I do think that Eric had the right call. So thanks, Eric. And hopefully my explanation helped make sense of it all. So I think you're close. You're just off by an indentation level. And it's all about, there's a lot of scope stuff, and this is where Python's white space comes into play. I guess what final comment can I make about this? So I'll say one more thing, and then I'll wrap up from there. When it's outdented, what the self is here, self is nothing magical in Python. Self is purely a convention. You could make a class named, I'm going to just call mine foo and be nice and boring, and I'm going to put a method on it called bar. But the name that is, usually see as self here, and then, self dot some attribute is being attached to the class like this. This convention is that. It's just a convention. So I could say ASDF, and that would be okay. Python's not going to blow up with this. So what's really happening, and the way Python's a little strange in this regard, is methods. So methods are functions that are attached to classes. That's all they are. It's a fancier name for a function. But the key element of a method is that the first argument to the method is an instance of the class. So how deep do we go here? There's some really interesting stuff here. So if you inspect a class, you can find some methods on it. Actually, this might be a little fun little exercise. Let's go to the interpreter. If this is boring to you, let me know. But I'm having kind of some fun here. So let's do a class, and I don't stream every day. I just stream on Wednesdays. I appreciate your comment though. That's really gracious of you. So we're going to add a method, and our method is going to just print hello world. Nothing really fancy. So we've created a new class here, and now we're in the REPL. So we could do a dir and see what is in the REPL scope. And so this class was added directly to the REPL. If you're in a file, it's going to add it to that module, because that file is a module in Python. And you can look at any class. Python's really good about introspecting stuff. And you could say dir on foo. Tell me what's in foo, basically. And within here, this is where I'm starting to get to the fringe of my knowledge, but there's stuff. Here it is. So there is foo.bar. So it's a function, and it just says function foo.bar. I think Python 2 used to have a different message. Essentially, it is saying I have a definition of a function that I want to run. But if we try to call foo.bar directly, it's going to say that bar is missing its required positional argument self. So how does this work? If we make a foo instance, we can do the same thing. Okay? We can say foo.bar, and now it works. So what happened that was different? The syntax for foo.bar here is really the term is like syntactic sugar. So it's really a translation of saying something akin to, it's not exactly this for specific reasons, but it's something like this, where you're calling the function that's attached to the foo class, and you're passing it the foo instance. This should actually work. So it's kind of weird that worked, but the difference is how they are considered. Foo.bar is something, we could store it. We could call it func and say foo.bar, and now we have this unbound. So we have a function that's available, and we could call func, and we could pass it the foo and get hello world and call it just like the method it's supposed to be. So in this context, the foo.bar is considered an unbound method. So that's why we had to pass in the foo instance directly in order to make it work. When you make an actual foo instance, if we look at foo itself, you'll see there's a bar here. See that? And if we did the type on foo.bar, notice the difference. This time I called it a function. This time I called it a method. So what that means semantically is that the function is bound together with the instance so that the connection is implied. When you call foo.bar, it is Python is saying, all right, I know I have a bound method. I know that I need to pass in the first argument needs to be the instance, so I'm going to pass in myself, which is why we use that term self, because it's referring to the instance that the bound method is using. Hopefully that made some kind of sense to you, but that's kind of how Python is working under the covers. As I said, it's a little bit more complicated than that because there are other fancier features that are in Python, but that's the basic idea, is that methods, which are bound to instances, will always receive the instance as its first argument, which is why we use that self for all those methods. And that's why that convention is there and very strongly encouraged. And there's some variance to this too. Like we could have a different class, and instead of using a direct method, there's some decorators and stuff. Now I'm going a bit off the deep end, so this might be too much, but we can still go with it for a second. And so in this context, we're saying we now have a class method. And here we can say hello again. Okay, so now with this class, because we declared this as a class method, we can do bar.baz, and it's not going to complain at us, because the class is already defined at this point. The reason it didn't work with a method is because the interpreter wants to have instance state and be able to do some extra stuff with it, but since we've declared this as a class method, the class state is already available. And so if we, this is not a great example because there's nothing, it's not using anything of that, but if we had added some class attribute, like in your paste bin, for example, you've got your class copyright, we could have said print class copyright, and it would have printed that string that you've had. No copyright has been set. So hopefully that makes that sense of that. There's a third variant too, where you have another decorator called static method. Static method basically adds a pure function to a class. Kind of gives you a way to group it into a class without actually having an argument as that first one. So we could do another class and use static method and then leave the argument list empty. I guess they're technically parameters at the definition time, but we won't get into those semantics. So anyway, there's a I guess 10-minute primer on some of the ways that classes are done. Hopefully that helps you out. All right, and with that, I think I'm going to call it for the night. So we've got a detail view. You're welcome. I'm glad I was able to help you out. And so we've got this detail view. It's pretty close to done. There's some other features I want to add. Maybe we'll get to them next week. Kind of entering back into the state of I'm not doing school desk stuff all the time like I was when the school year started and trying to get stuff done. But I am still trying to make steady progress. And so the stream is a good way to do that. So this content will go up as usual on YouTube after the fact. If you like what you saw, please give me a follow on Twitch, I think is the right thing, or a subscribe on YouTube, whatever. There's a ton of stuff over there. You can search for Matt Lehman on YouTube, and I've got all of my streams from I guess a couple of years now are up there. So there's hundreds of hours of content that you can go view. That is basically similar to this, where I'm just kind of in the midst of stuff going over Django apps. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope y'all have a great night or day wherever you are. Take care.